So before we dive into this bizarre tale, I want you to take a moment and just for a second, just think about this. You come home from a long, stressful day. You're tired and you're ready to relax. And all you want to do is crawl into bed and forget about the world for a little while. But then you wake up the next morning, you rub your eyes and you realize, wait a minute. Somebody broke into my house and gave me a haircut. Yeah. Weird,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
No, that's totally makes sense.
You'd probably think you were losing your mind, or you were maybe in, Smile 2 or something. But somebody maybe was playing a prank, but no, this actually happened in a small town in Mississippi during World War II. And it wasn't a one-time occurrence. This happened over and over again with different people.
There was a serial middle of the
Barber.
night hair cutter going around?
Yeah.
No.
Residents of Pascagoula woke up to find that someone or something was cutting their hair in the dead of night. No one could explain it. Nobody could stop it. They called him the Phantom Barber.
I hate this.
The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula.
Ew.
A strange, and some would say hair-raising experience. So it's 1942. The world's already pretty much upside down. World War II is underway. You'd think that that's enough weirdness for a year, but nope. In Mississippi, it had its own brand of bizarre and strange occurrences. The Phantom Barber was striking repeatedly night after night. Now, Pascagoula, it's a small town. It's on the Gulf Coast. Residents were waking up, and this just happened all at once, noticing their hair was cut, and not just a little snip here and there. Huge strands of their hair had been taken, like big chunks.
How does someone cut your hair without you noticing?
That's a great question. And that was one of the things that confused people, because this wasn't a clumsy crime. It was meticulous. The guy, or whoever it was sneaky.
You know it was a guy.
It probably was a guy.
Of course it was a guy.
He'd break in, he'd cut your hair and disappear without a trace. There was no sign of forced entry. There were no valuables missing. There was no assault other than some of your hair had been shaved.
Wait, shaved or cut?
It had been snipped sort of off.
Okay.
And in some cases, shaved. Like a person would come in, lift up a chunk of your hair, and then, and away you'd go. So people were getting up and looking in the mirror to find, in some cases, half of their hair gone.
There's no way that someone could be razor blading hair off without you noticing.
Well, they probably weren't using an electric razor, probably just scissors, but they were cutting it right down to the very skull.
When I say shaved or cut, I mean, those are two different things.
You're talking barbering semantics here.
I just want to understand.
Okay. Yeah, they don't know for sure what tool he used, but it was quiet and effective, and it got close to the scalp. This happened to a woman named, this is the first victim, Ada Bird, and it happened in the summer of 1942. She woke up in the middle of the night, and she was feeling something weird on her head, like a breeze. She thought it was just a breeze and the window had been left open or something, but she flicked on the light and somebody had snuck into her room and cut her hair, a lock of it. And it was long and it was cleanly snipped, just gone. I would think that would be terrifying.
Yes.
First of all, your space, you feel invaded.
Yeah.
Somebody has come in here and violated your private space, and especially your bedroom, but then took the liberty to, trim your bangs. Ada wasn't the only one, not by far. Pretty soon, people all over town were reporting the same strange thing, waking up and finding that a good part of their hair was missing.
But was anybody waking up while it was happening?
The closest one was Ada Bird, and it was just because the hair was gone. Her head felt like it was a breeze or something.
But no one woke up with anyone in their room.
Nope. They would just wake up and their hair was gone. And it didn't matter how tight the windows were shut or how secure the doors were. And believe me, once word started getting around that the Phantom Barber was on the loose, people were making sure that everything was locked up tight at night. But somehow this Phantom Barber was getting in, cutting hair, leaving no trace except for a weird, unsettling mess of questions. And you know what that means? Widespread panic.
Sure.
And panic, of course, leads to theories. Theories lead to some wild ideas. So let's break down some of the theories that sprang up around this creepy little mystery. Who the hell was this guy? First of all, we'll talk about what people thought was happening. For starters, some people thought it was the work of a vengeful ex-barber. Because of course they did. Maybe he was a disgruntled former employee of a local barber shop and was let go wrongfully and decided to take revenge by breaking into people's homes at night and giving them a really shitty haircut. It's possible.
I don't know.
It makes total sense. Another theory that popped up was that it was some kind of an insane prank. Like maybe you had to do this to get into a fraternity.
Right, an initiation of some sort.
Yeah, or maybe just somebody having a little bit too much fun at the town's expense. Maybe it was a prank. And when I say prank, I mean the kind of prank that makes you want to start locking all your doors and barricading your windows at night. No one could explain why somebody would just go around cutting hair or why they wouldn't take anything else. They go to all the trouble to break into somebody's house. There are valuables, assumingly, lying around, and all they are there for is just to cut and take hair. Naturally, more of the paranoid townsfolk started to speculate that maybe it was something more sinister.
Of course, yes, a cult of some sort.
Yeah, maybe the Phantom Barber wasn't even human.
Oh.
Some thought it could be the work of the ghost of a hairdresser or something. Or worse, maybe it was a balding ghost with a real grudge against people who have a fine head of hair. These were real theories. Others, even more dramatically, started thinking, maybe it was an occult thing. Maybe the Phantom Barber wasn't some disgruntled citizen, but part of some weird ritualistic ceremony. Weirder than burying used dildos. In this case, hair, of course, can be a pretty big deal in some spiritual circles.
Sure.
Maybe the barber had some otherworldly reason for snipping off hair in the dead of night. And the poor people weren't just being robbed of their locks, they were possibly caught up in some sort of dark voodoo.
Like some sort of revenge doll kind of thing.
That's what a lot of people were starting to think. It's exactly the type of thing that makes you reconsider living in a sleepy little town when there are voodoo rituals being practiced in the middle of the night.
I would specify dark ones, because there's good voodoo.
It's like they were all part of some sort of a bizarre experiment, the citizens of Pascagoula. You know how UFO enthusiasts are pretty sure that cattle mutilations are aliens collecting biosamples to study cows? Maybe Pascagoula got its own version of that, but instead of cattle, it's just a bunch of confused humans waking up with partially shaved noggins. Maybe the aliens are branching out thinking, we've got this cow thing covered, but humans, that's an untapped resource.
Yeah. You think it's like a Dark City kind of situation where the aliens put everyone to sleep and kind of freeze everything?
Maybe they were cataloging DNA by snipping off hair. Maybe it's just I don't know, fun to mess with humans. And let's face it, if I were a spacefaring being with access to interdimensional travel,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I'd want to do is give a member of the human species a bad haircut. Wouldn't you? I mean, let's be
Mm.
honest. I know I
Yeah,
would. It's kind of like intergalactic hazing.
I'm leaning more towards perv.
Regardless, the good folks of Pascagoula weren't about to let this go without some kind of a response. So the police got involved. What else do you do when there's a ghost barber snipping locks from people's heads? So they started running around asking questions, taking fingerprints, and setting up stakeouts, hoping to catch this guy in the act. But as you can imagine, it didn't go very well. The Phantom Barber was very good, too good. No one could figure out who he was, how he was getting in, or why he was taking hair and leaving everything else behind.
Perv.
And you can't really blame the police for being stumped. I mean, what do you do? It's a guy essentially, it's a hair cutting ghost. It must have been awkward for them to knock on neighbors' doors and say, "Hey, anyone seen a guy wandering around in the middle of the night with a pair of thinning shears?" It's hard to do. Mysteriously, after that summer, the Phantom Barber seemed to vanish. He just stopped cutting hair.
Interesting.
Nobody ever caught him. And to this day, no one really knows who he was or what the heck his deal was. Some say just a prankster with a weird hobby. Others think it was a disturbed individual who found some weird sense of pleasure in taking people's hair in the middle of the night. And that's kind of what I'm leaning toward. And I know you are too. Some kind of a hair theft fetish.
You know, the answer is almost always perv.
Quite often that's the case. Maybe he just got bored after doing this and moved to another town, leaving.
That's such a specific thing, though. I don't know.
I would be interested to know if there were ever any other reported incidents in other towns nearby.
Me too. Yeah. Because that sounds like maybe someone was visiting for the summer.
Or maybe it was somebody just traveling through, like a member of the military was being stationed somewhere nearby. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, that's a cool story, Jethro, but what do we take away from this? Well, maybe there is no takeaway. Sometimes the world just throws us the oddest, most bizarre things, and they just sit there in the history books unanswered and unresolved. And sometimes, let's face it, people just do weird shit that doesn't make sense. And and all we can do is just kind of scratch our heads and go, yep, my hair's still there.
Yeah.
And say, well, that was something.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny. I think enough time has passed. It's funny to think that after all these years, the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula keeps people guessing. And maybe that's part of the appeal, in my opinion. The story, the weirdness that we just can't explain, the things that defy logic. Because no one in 1942 or even today could have predicted that some guy with a certain degree of barbering skill would cut people's hair in the dead of night. Just weird. So next time you're in Pascagoula, keep an eye on your hair. You never know, maybe the Phantom Barber is still out there just waiting his next victim to fall asleep. Although I would think that probably at this point, the Phantom Barber's in his 90s. So probably not as stealthy. He just you hear his walker clanking in the hallway and his scissors, oh, geez, I gotta cut some hair. Like that.
I don't care for this story. It's just such an unsettling idea that someone's in your room in the middle of the night and you don't know it. Like,
they're just doing some weird unexplained thing like cutting your hair.
I don't care what they're doing. I don't want them there. I don't even like it when you pop in the middle of the night and say, "I love you, good night." I don't like that. I just like, what?
Cat sleeps in another room because, believe it or not, I snore. I know it's hard, right? to believe. Cat popped in on me last night, though.
I did. I wasn't sleeping well, so I popped in and bothered you.
Just snuggled up for a bit. That's always a nice surprise. You said, I can't sleep. And I said, well, you're in the right place. So we both kind of stayed up together for a while.
Well, we watched a horror movie last night. It was part of our Valentine's
Yeah.
celebration. Was a nice dinner and Smile too.
Smile
So
too. Yeah.
maybe
Whew.
it was sticking with me a little bit more than I would like to think
It
it would.
stuck with me too.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, Smile 2, Smile 1 was great. Smile 2 also great. But they didn't need to include all of the graphic violence.
There's some real upsetting imagery for sure.
And to me, and I know a lot of people enjoy that, and that's cool. But to me, it didn't add to the story. The story was great on its own, and it was just this slow burn suspense.
Yeah.
You didn't know what was real and what wasn't real. Oh, and there's a bone sticking out of her leg. You know,
At one point, I was like, this makes me very anxious. And then I looked at you and I was like, but isn't it nice that the anxiety is coming from an exterior place and not from
yeah,
like in here?
yeah, that's
It's
true.
something to examine.
My sources for the Phantom Barber come from the Mississippi Historical Society, the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula, Pascagoula's Phantom Barber True Crime Files, and Weird and Unsolved, the Phantom Barber from Weird History.
That was weird.